What's up, you guys? Void here, coming back at y'all with a brand new series. This is something that I hope I can continue to do for the future. Likely only going to be doing 1 to 2 of these a week. So essentially what I want to do is I want to take a card that I feel is just amazing, that has very few flaws about it, and just go into depth about why I like the card. It's not going to be a long video, usually around 5 minutes, something like that, hopefully. But yeah, I'm just going to take one card. This isn't going to be like a top 10 list or top 20 or anything like that, or even like the 10 underrated cards list. This is just going to take one card that I find to be very powerful in the Commander format. Very good, either I like it personally, just any reason why I like it. I'm going to tell you exactly why I like that card. And for the very first episode here, we're going to take a look at Ancient Excavation, printed in Commander 2016. That's it. The only time it's been printed, and it is a beautiful card. I love it. I love the artwork, Dimir colors, and we have some good card draw within these two colors. We don't really have a lot of it in just Dimir altogether. We have Whispering Madness, which is the artwork for the background, which is sort of like a windfall effect. But to have this type of card draw at instant speed, which is something we don't see a lot, and also on top of the fact that it has basic land cycling for 2 mana. All amazing reasons why this should see more play. I don't think it sees enough play, but it's starting to catch on. It's one of those amazing cards. And there's also another card that has basic land cycling. It's 5 mana and Celestia colors that allows you to exile artifacts and enchantments. That is another card probably for a future video that I'll go into and discuss why that card is amazing, but this is about Ancient Excavation. So yeah, you basically draw cards equal to the number of cards in your hand, and then you discard a card for each card drawn this way. So if you have 6 cards in your hand, you draw 6 cards and then discard 6 cards. Pretty simple. The fact that this can be done at instant speed, though, is very unusual. We don't see something that can draw you a ton of cards like this at instant speed very often. Usually this is like a windfall effect. Those are typically at sorcery speed. You don't see this at instant speed. Another big bonus is that it's not a windfall effect. You're not giving your opponent's card draw, so you get to benefit entirely from this card's effect. Your opponents aren't touched at all by it, so it allows you to put this in decks beyond just the wheel and deal type of strategy with commanders such as Nekusar the Mindraiser, where you see a ton of Wheel of Fortune effects, a ton of windfall effects, because the whole purpose of that deck is to force your opponents to draw cards, because they're going to be dealt damage, they're going to lose life based off of that card draw. This has nothing to do with that. So are you going to likely put this in the same deck as Nekusar or something similar to that? Maybe. But really, I feel it's good in Dimir colors, period. If you're going to have a deck with blue-black in it, this should be in consideration for your deck. It's brilliant card draw. And at the very worst, it is 2 mana. You get to search up a basic land and put it into your hand, which is always underrated. Most people don't appreciate cycling as much as they should, and the fact that, yeah, it's basic land cycling, you don't get to just draw a card, it's arguably better. Imagine having no lands turn 3, or you're worried that you're not going to get your 3rd land drop. You just have 2 mana there. You can cycle this away to get your land drop, and it could help save you, help you stabilize in a game you would otherwise be losing if you had this at 4 mana just sitting in your hand rotting away. You couldn't play it. So at its very worst, it is still better than a lot of cards. But now we're going to talk about some of the synergy, some of the decks, some of the commanders that this card is absolutely amazing with. And the first one, the most obvious one, would have to be a commander from the same set. Yidris Maelstrom Wielder. This guy is brilliant. Cascade is a wonderful effect. And the fact that we had this keyword on this commander and being able to give your other cards Cascade is amazing. This is a wonderful card to cascade into. Getting card draw, getting mana is typically what you want to do in that deck. So Ancient Excavation was likely one of the cards that you kept in the precon. However, there are other commanders that work even better with this card, such as Mimeoplasm. For instance, let's just say you have 6 cards in your hand. You get to draw 6 cards and then you get to discard any 6 cards. It's not forcing you to discard any specific cards. It's forcing you to discard just 6 cards. So you can pick and choose good creatures to dump into your graveyard for that type of deck. That way you can play Mimeoplasm, exile 2 creatures from your graveyard. Those are likely creatures you gave up off the discard. I mean, that's a ton of advantage. I'm not going to say it's like Buried Alive, where you can get 3 creatures from your deck into your graveyard, but it's very similar in terms of graveyard setup that you just don't really see in a lot of cards like this. Usually you see like a Windfall where you just have to discard all the cards in your hand in order to draw new cards. You don't really get the choice of what you discard. So these cards are more selective. They give you more options. These are always going to be better than just the more simplistic cards in this format, especially if you know what you're doing and especially if you avoid the misplays, because this is another thing I have to mention with a lot of the cards I'm going to be making these videos on. These are not the easiest cards to play with. It is very easy to misplay with something like this compared to playing something simple like a Soul Ring. Everybody knows how to play a Soul Ring. Everybody knows what to do with it. It's just tapping for 2 mana. Nothing special. Can't really misplay with a Soul Ring. Very difficult. Ancient Excavation, though, very complex compared to cards like that. You have so many decisions. The fact that it's instant speed means that there are right times to play this and there are wrong times to play this. If you know you're going up against control decks, you want to play this at instant speed at their end step to avoid any chance of them countering, and usually you want to do this when they're tapped out. And basic land cycling also gives you yet another option, on top of the fact that you can also choose which cards you want to discard. So it's options on options on options there that you get with a card like this. And that's what I typically love about my cards that I just enjoy in this format. And another deck, another commander I should say, that really loves this card is Tasigur the Golden Fang. Another Sultai colored commander, basically just a love for the graveyard with this type of commander. And why not? You get to fill your graveyard with more cards that you can delve to pay the mana cost for Tasigur. Same thing with other cards in the deck that have delve costs. Pretty good. But again, it's not just held to these graveyard based decks or even the storm based decks with Yidris. You can also just throw this into any deck that's playing blue-black, and I think it's still a good card. If not for the graveyard manipulation, if not for the discard selection, it's definitely going to be a consideration because of the basic land cycling. It's so underrated. Yes, you give up a good card draw spell, but you also get a basic land. You get to secure a land drop. This is always underrated in this format. So many people wonder why they can't play spells on certain turns. Why did I get off to a terrible start? You valued the bigger plays over mana, getting your setup right. That's why you lose more games than you win, because you don't value a proper setup in order to get into your bigger spells later on in the game. But yeah, it's just one of those cards. It gives you options. It can be valuable early game if you're incredibly desperate, and it can definitely win you games later on. So many decks. No maximum hand size. Imagine having 20 cards in your hand. You play this card. You get to draw 20 cards. Yeah, you have to discard 20, but who cares? Keep the best 20 cards in your hand? That's insane. So anyway, guys, that's just my 2 cents on the card. Absolutely fell in love with it the first time I saw it. Let me know what you think about the card. Works with so many decks, and I feel that more and more people should know about this card. Not just my opinion about it, but just look at it for yourselves, you know? Play with it, put it in your decks, give it a chance if you haven't already. Brilliant card. Anyway, you'll have a wonderful day. Void here signing off.